Welcome back to the Calpart Bros podcast. Jason and I have just spoke at length about the Sage Steele interview with Jay Cutler, leading to her mini vacay. That's not a cancellation.
It was more of a pay cake. She got paid still. Didn't have to work. She's good.
Yeah, I mean, don't bite the hand that feeds, dog. Like, unless you're trying to work your way out of that deal. Just saying.
Well, I doubt she's trying to do that. I doubt it. But
Yeah, she could though. She could be Candace Owens Jr.
although she doesn't mind the comparison, I really hope she's not trying to be like her. I really hope not.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. In this next segment, we're going to be talking about four little words. Do your own research. According to an article on CNN Business, these four words are helping to spread vaccine misinformation. Ramishah Maroof of CNN Business stated, four little words, do your own research, are heard in the U.S. pandemic response. CNN's chief media correspondent Brian Stelter said on Reliable Sources Sunday, and it is having real consequences as personalities from Nicki Minaj to Sean Hannity continue to promote the idea. Minaj raised doubts about the COVID-19 vaccine on Twitter last week, claiming she would only get the shots once she's done enough research, in quotations. It may seem like a reasonable, even positive attitude, and it is a favored talking point echoed by many in the right-wing media. The problem is that most people simply don't know how to do their own research, especially when it comes to understanding the complexities of medical science. This concept has also become associated with COVID-19 and QAnon, but the phrase do your own research dates back to the 1890s when it was associated with the skepticism surrounding the smallpox vaccine. Renee DeResta, research manager at the Stanford Internet Observatory, said on Reliable Sources. The notion of doing your own research is not a bad idea in of itself, but it's important to maintain a healthy level of skepticism about the information being fed to you. But in today's media environment, fueled by clicks and engagement, it's all too easy to come across misleading data that confirms biases. Ain't that the truth? Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at this right now, and I'm like, yeah, it says a healthy level of skepticism. What we're up against right now, Jason, and I say we as in a community, as a world, this is an unhealthy level of skepticism. Motherfuckers are questioning people that actually went to the school to study this shit for 20 years. What the fuck? What are your thoughts?
I kind of missed that phrase that you just said because you hadn't said it in a couple episodes. So, well, you haven't. Don't shake your head. You haven't. But so what you read, two little lines or quotes stood out to me. One, the problem is that most people simply don't know how to do their own research. And then the notion of doing your own research is not a bad idea in itself. Definitely doing your own research is not a bad thing. It cannot be. It's important that way you're not fully relying on just the words of random people that, like I said, aren't even professionals. But also still good to do your research, even for people, even based off what professionals do tell you. Be sure of what you're being told. Look it up. Not necessarily on Facebook, but that goes into that other line. People don't know how to research. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all stuff like that is good for many different things. Relying solely on what people tell you online, as far as on your Facebook friends list or whatever, probably not the best way to do research if that's all you're going to be looking into and relying on. It's called going a step further. Taking the information people give you and then looking into it. Also, one thing I do want to point out is that they quoted that the do your own research goes back to the 1890s, which matches something you said yesterday, is that we've been hearing that phrase for a long time. Of course, what stands out is that term coming up back in 2016 during the election, when Trump and Hillary were going into it, people were saying, do your own research. Don't rely on CNN. Don't rely on Fox News, all this other stuff. Do your own research. And obviously, we hear it now, like you said, during the pandemic when it comes to people taking the vaccines and masking and all the other stuff. But like I told you yesterday, I think people don't know how to do their own research or they don't want to.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. Motherfuckers are hard headed and they don't want to. People are committed to a narrative already established, and it's like playing King of the Mountain during when it was wintertime as kids. People don't want to be moved off the mountain. Once you arrived at, well, this is what I believe. I mean, you got people that are licensed medical professionals 10 years, 20 years, 30 years telling you, okay, this is what I think you should do. And you're going to say, nah, I'm good. I did my own research.
Well, again, that's not a bad thing, but what was it research entailing? You know what I mean? Like I said, you have a medical professional telling you one thing. Why don't you research what they're telling you as opposed to just doing your own research that has nothing to do with whatever they're telling you? So again, doing your own research isn't a bad thing, but what does it consist of? Which goes back to the first statement is people don't know how to even when you do, if you do.
Yeah, these people are doing their own research like the console wars saying Xbox sucks or PlayStation forever or Nintendo rules all. Like, there's no fucking way vaccination should have been so politicized to the point that it sounds like a video game fanboy fucking, cosplay event. That's where we're at. That's where we're at.
Was the vaccine politicized though by politicians or the government, or was it more politicized by the people themselves, as in me, you, and Joe Schmo around the corner?
I mean, can it be both? I mean, this is not the first time there's been a mandate. That's why I didn't want to hear that shit from Sage Steele. There's a reason you have truancy laws. There's a reason that Mr. Brown here can't just pull his kid out of school when they were 8 years old and say, "Hey, now we're going to work." You know, those laws, those were codified not only from a state level, but a local level, municipality level. So this shit is not new. And it's more frustrating because we've never had more ample access to good information. Like, yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there. It's kind of like how I can say, well, it's so hard to eat healthy. Like, well, yeah, because I'm choosing to literally walk my black ass past the veggie aisle and into the candy section because I'm having a stressful month. Like, it's not that, kale is expensive. It's just that big old bag of Sour Patch Kids is calling my name.
Interesting correlation there, buddy. First of all, let me go back just a little tiny bit. PlayStation Forever. Hashtag PS rules. Yeah, I mean, we've always dealt with mandates. I get it. When it comes to, I agree with you. In this day and age, we have access to so much information, which could be good or bad. But I think, like you said, like going back to what I was saying before, people may not know how to get to it if they even try. Like, how confident do you feel about your research skills when it comes to anything, not just the vaccine? How confident do you feel in your general research abilities to search a topic, Terrence, on a scale of 1 to 10? How would you say? How would you rate yourself?
A 7.
Okay, even that's not a 10. So,
well, yeah, because I have my own biases, and I have to kind of counter that with, hey, I already have. Well, before I even get into my own biases, where would you put you? If I'm a 7, where would you put yourself?
Well, see, I'm not the right person to ask because I'd say automatically I'm a 10. But to back off, to back off a little bit of the overconfidence here.
You overconfident?
Well, okay. So put it this way: I'd give myself at least an 8. To recognize that I'm not the top notch of researchers, because obviously there's people that can do it way better than me because they get paid to do that type of stuff. But I give myself at least an 8 because I'm not stopping at the first piece of information that I get, whether it's either in favor of my argument or against it. I want more. You know, for example, I have a friend who, unfortunately, when she got the first dose of one of the vaccines, not the J&J, but one of the other two, she ran into one of those complications that are noted for the vaccines. Now, when I say noted, again, the very small percentage of people that get this, that, or the other. She was part of that. I had never heard of her issue, which was vestibular neurosis or neuritis. I had never even heard of that. So first thing I did was, okay, let me look it up. Everything about that particular affliction was everything she had. I'm like, okay. Then I go to the CDC website, the premier, you know, entity when it comes to all this stuff. And of course, on the website, they have information about this when it comes to people that get, people getting it, the percentage of it, so forth and so forth. So again, I didn't stop at any piece of information that satisfied my argument or disagreed with it. I wanted the best information from the sources, and then I didn't even stop with the CDC website as well. Then I went from there, like, oh, okay, well, let me check out WebMD. Let me check out this medical doctor's website, who's an expert in this stuff, right? So that's what is important there. Definitely, it's important to look into, because obviously, COVID or taking a vaccine or not is a big decision, whether you want to get it or not. So I feel like it's definitely worth looking into beyond just that first website I go to. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I give myself an 8. So just because of that, I want to look into things, whether it be the vaccine, elections, whatever. I don't want to stop because it's an important decision. Now, if there wasn't an important decision, I probably wouldn't do as much. But obviously, these two things we're talking about are definitely important. So that's my answer to your question. 8. Can't hate on 8. Hashtag that.
Ha. But yeah, I think that, and you look at some of the things we've talked about on the show, Jason, they tend to have a longer tail anyway. We never say, "Oh, well, this is the final word on any segment." Why? Because shit changes, and so should our thoughts, our feelings, and our research. You know, there's a reason we're still keeping an eye out on Texas and that abortion bill, because guess what? That's already been challenged. Um, so there is absolute power in doing your own research. I would encourage all of you to actually do it. My frustration is that when some of these people say that shit, they are not being serious. They are
Like, what do
not.
you mean?
They Some of these people are not operating in good faith, Jason. They are using do your own research as basically a stopgap just to get the person to quit fucking bringing it up. Could be the vaccine, could be, uh, you know, the the proliferation of deep fakes, you name it. For some people, that's an opportunity to actually have a legit conversation, and for others, it's a time to obfuscate. So that was
Fair
really my
enough.
point. Yeah. Um, can you think of another subject other than the vaccine? And I also think this is important, where you mentioned the political. When you asked me if I thought that politicians were doing it or regular Joe Schmoes were doing it, why'd you ask me that?
Okay, because I've heard that phrase before when it comes to people saying the vaccine and all this stuff and masking whatever has been heavily politicized. And I don't really see or understand how they mean or agree that it has been politicized. I, I just don't agree or necessarily understand the reasoning behind people saying that it is or has been. That's why I was asking.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say that it's been politicized because everything's political. You have often said, I shouldn't say often. You have said enough times that we're not going to talk about politics on this show. And my response has been, there's no way for us to not talk politics on this show because we're talking about people.
Well, again, when I say that, I mean it's not going to be a singular, again, topic to say, oh, we're going to talk the GOP nominations in segment 3. No, we're not doing that.
We're not.
No, ever. So that's what I mean by that. We're not going to talk politics. We're not a political show. Yes, there's going to be some things we talk about. They're going to have a political aspect to them. We can't avoid that. You know, unless we talk sports all the time. But even that's going to entail us every so often to involve politics. You know, look at the kneeling situation when it comes to Trump. That you know, but yeah. So I just still don't see how the vaccine has been politicized by the government or politicians. Maybe because I removed myself from that situation. I see it more between the people. You know, now now what I will say is maybe the media also has a role in that when it comes to politicizing things. When it comes to making it seem like these people are the ones who are taking the vaccine, these are the people are the ones that aren't, and we start doing that, it's going to get dangerously close to, even though they may or may not mean it to be political, it's going to seem like, oh, these Democrats, i.e., black people, are the ones not taking it, versus the Republicans, i.e., upper class, middle class white people, they're the ones that are taking it. And that's where it can be politicized, not necessarily by politicians, maybe the media and the people watching said media, right? That's what I may think when it's politicized. So I wouldn't say it's Donald Trump or Biden or anybody else politicizing it. It's people between them and us. So
Okay. Next fun question. Are we the media?
me and you,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, obviously a different level. Obviously, we're as awesome as I think we are, and we are. I'm not going to say it's CNN, Fox News, and then us. I'm not going to put us. I'm not going to put the Cowpart Bros yet in that triumvirate of of you know media sources. But yes, we are media because obviously you know we don't have the audience of CNN yet, but still we have an audience and it's going to get spread around. So in a way, we are media. I like to think that people definitely, hopefully, folks, hopefully, again, as influential as we want to be, hopefully you're not taking anything we say and writing that off as gospel and then living like that. Please. And I know I'm going to say those dangerous words, but do your own research on stuff that we say, but actually do it. Like Terrence said, there's all sorts of information out there at the touch of a fingertip, at the click of a button. Make sure you do it. But are we media? I almost feel like we have to say yes. I mean, again, we don't have 5 million people like Jay Cutler, but we're doing the same thing. We're putting messages out there either from our own opinions or, like in his case, having guests out there and having that conversation that way. So we have to say we're media. So yeah.
And with that comes a certain obligation, which means we at least got to do enough research to feel confident enough to speak to it and not be driven solely off emotion. I mean, I definitely feel like when we first started the show, we were relying heavily on emotion, which is not a bad thing. But if you want to have the primo content, you got to tie the emotion in with the the forethought, and the prep, and the willingness to say, you know what, we don't fucking know everything, and that's okay. We're going in at least saying, hey, we know enough. We will literally tell you, hey, this is how much we researched shit. Jason literally just told you he watched that Jay Cutler Stage Steel interview earlier today. I can tell you, I listened to it earlier today. Like, that's the accountability piece for me that is big. It's like, if we don't know enough to speak to it for 15 to 20 minutes and we can't do so what we feel like it's at our standard, then we have no fucking business talking about it anyway. We haven't done the work. And that's the part that I appreciate. I'm like, hey, if we don't know enough, it shouldn't be a segment. And we haven't argued enough about it, or at least talked about it enough that we feel comfortable and confident enough to speak to what the real issues are. And I feel that we have in this segment, at least based off of that CNN piece. Then yeah, it means that us too, we're effectively holding the world accountable to that. We're holding you to the same standard we hold the Cal Park Bros accountable to.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you brought that up, man, because I was actually thinking about that as I was making kind of show notes and kind of thinking about things that we want to talk about specifically to these topics. Going back to episode one, I know one of the topics in that episode was the FedEx shooting that happened here in Indianapolis. And I know I definitely looked into that information, obviously, because it happened here. And I think I already knew a lot about it anyway, because I know someone that worked for FedEx or works for FedEx. And so I feel like I knew a little bit about them, but I feel like that segment laid the groundwork into what we do now. But definitely, like I said, when we have these production meetings, what people don't see is beforehand, we, have a thing set up to where we put all the topic ideas in like one little area so we can kind of come to it on Monday during the production meetings and say, okay, what are we going to talk about? Well, each topic we suggest, we have articles about each topic. So we kind of go through the articles and realize, okay, like you said, can we find out enough about this topic to make it a good 15, 20 minutes? If we can't make a segment 15 or 20 minutes, like you said, probably not worth us talking about it. And I agree with you. We've come a long way since episode one when it comes to just even doing more research into a topic, because I can imagine if you and I both sat back and listened to episode one compared to episode 25, we probably feel a lot different about the quality of what we're putting out. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love episode one for the fact that it was the beginning. It was the alpha. But as far as the quality of the show, not even just the sound quality and all the other stuff, the quality of the show is a lot different. There's a reason why that first episode was our only show that was less than 1 hour. There's a reason for that, because more stuff. After that, we put more into the show when it comes to just adding quality of the content itself. And even though there was one episode a couple ago where we were close to being under an hour, and we were joking about it was going to be our first episode under an hour, now that we're talking about this, I'm actually glad it wasn't an hour. So, like I told you before, the sweet spot for us, I think, is 60 to 75 minutes, but we can go 90 if the content is worth it. But yeah, that all goes into the fact that we're putting more into it in regards to making sure we are doing our due diligence. Not pretending that we're down limit on CNN or anything, but we're not trying to sound like Joe Schmo, Jenny from around the block, like an idiot who just started their podcast, yesterday, because we haven't. We're 6 months into this, episode 25, on the road to 50 and 100. So yeah, folks, we definitely put a lot into it when it comes to looking stuff up before we say stuff, and we still say stupid stuff. But hopefully, we try to own up to it whenever we do, or correct it. So,
Here, here. Well, folks, that concludes segment 2 about doing your own research. Coming up in the third segment, we're going to go with something a little bit lighter, talk about some of the sports narratives within the city of big shoulders, and that is Chicago. Coming up next on Cal Park Bros.